Hi, my name is Borys, and in this video we are going through 3 house track ideas in Ableton 12. We're gonna go over the drums, synths and mixing to give you an overview of how to create tracks in this genre. Before we get into the video, if you like what we are doing on this channel, make sure to subscribe. We've got more content about Ableton 12 coming up. If you'd like to learn Live 12 with all the foundations of music production, check out the Beginner to Advanced Live 12 Start to Finish course, and the full project files with today's tracks are part of the brand new house pack called Fun Times, which is linked in the description. Alright, so let's get started. First project for today is called Wait, and let's just play it. Alright, so let's get started. We've got the vocals first. I'm just going to go through the tracks top to bottom. We've got this main vocal. We feel alive. It's a really compressed vocal phrase with a lot of echo on top. We feel alive. It's a ping-pong delay actually on top. Quite a lot of reverb. First of all, we are using multi-band dynamics to really squash the sound. We're doing EQing, so just cutting lows and boosting highs mostly. And we're doing some mid-side processing here. In the audio effect track, we've got one track which is completely just focused on the mids. By the way, you can switch this stereo knob to the mid-side mode, but just right-clicking and selecting mid-side mode over here, because it's like this by default. So we've just got mids here, no processing, and on the sides, just choosing sides here, we've got just 100% of reverb, so we're just adding way more reverb on the sides. Ping-pong delay on this entire signal and additional reverb on top. Now we've also got an Atmo, so just like a pad, vocal pad underneath it. Just subtle EQing here, and let's just take a look at the drums now. Here's the kick. Quite heavy actually, and very minimal processing here. Most of these effects are disabled at this point. Yeah, so just quite a heavy kick drum sample, although fairly short. We've got a cymbals group right here. First of all, there are 2 loops. We've got this loop, and then another one, very subtle in the background. No processing on these, here just some EQing. And yeah, most of these loops from our packs, they just work by just drag and drop. So that's what we did right here. And we've got a crash, also no processing needed. And then we've got a clap, just reducing the width here. The perk, also just making completely mono. Just adding a bit of groove. We've got a perk loop as well. Just for adding groove. We're just removing the bass frequencies from here. And then we have a tambourine. So let's play the drums group now. The drums are fairly simple. On top, we've got some compression. We've got the full parallel preset from Glue Compressor and saturation on top, just making the sound more cohesive. Let's take a look at the bass now. It's a great bass sound, and it's got a few elements to it. First of all, we've got the sub. And this sidechain is doing quite a lot. This is what it would sound like without it. We are completely ducking some notes. Yeah, so we're just left with the offbeat bass notes, pretty much. Sound design-wise, we've just got a sine wave, and I'm using the warping in the modern mode here to turn it into more harmonics. So it would sound like this by default. So just to make a sine wave. But the more warping we add, the more harmonics we get. And of course, we've also got a low-pass filter, and we're also manipulating the frequency knob with the second envelope. Alright, so let's take a look at what's also present here, because this bass sub would be pretty basic by default. We are adding these two tracks to it. This is adding some very nice harmonics on top. First of all, we've got this plug, which is repeating the offbeat notes of this bass sub. It's got way more higher frequencies. So we're using a bit of FM here on this triangle wave. Would sound like this. This is also a great way of doing bass lines. And then, yeah, also an envelope on the filter. On top, just EQ processing. But then we've also got a naked sine wave playing some upper harmonics. This is like a melody which is a bit hidden in the track. Especially here, you can barely hear it, but it's very nice when you listen to the bass as a whole. So it's just a naked sine wave on top right here. We are just playing 7 semitones above, so a fifth above the notes from the bass, and yeah, just raising some of the notes as well here for an additional melody line towards the end here. And that would be the bass. Now let's take a look at some of the instruments here. We've got a lead. So we are using this sweep pulse wave here, just a bit of glide in the mono mode to do this lead. On top we've got EQing, OCT, more EQing, and also sidechain. And it's very, very simple, no filter automations right here. Then we've also got a sine plug, which is fairly basic, just playing alongside the bass. For some additional harmonics, just a bit of envelope applied to the pitch for a nice attack. And we're using a sort of saw square wave here. Then we've got a piano with a nice chord progression. OTT on top and EQing. No fancy inversions going on right here. We've also got a pad which repeats these chords. And LFO just adding some movement here, applied to the filter. Similar thing is going on here. Also a saw wave, just 100% of reverb for a nice lush pad. We've got an Atmo plug made, also with an envelope applied to the pitch for a nice attack. And the first LFO is just moving the noise wavetable, so we get a bit of noise on top. Then we've also got a piano note on top. Just a lot more reverb applied here, and it's quite muted, so it's very subtle. We've also got another plug, quite bassy. So it's like a rolling bass line, but very subtle here, and we are removing the highs and the very lows as well. On top we've just got some transitions and ambience in the effects group. Alright, so here's the second track for today. So it's quite a piano house influence here. We've got this nice groovy bass line, this piano, and a bunch of synths also in the background. And let's just take a look at the kick first. Quite distorted actually. And it's not that distorted dry, so we are adding quite a bit of distortion here in this audio effect rack. We've got the dry signal and the distorted signal on another chain. A great technique of adding distortion without messing up the dry signal. Now we've got a clap as well. Lots of reverb applied here and also very wide. Then we've got quite a lot of cymbals. So it's very, very busy here in the cymbals group. First of all, we've got this nice hat here. This open hat, just EQ on top. This is layered with this hat. No processing here. Another one. And these would be the open hats, in the offbeat positions. Now we've got a hat loop. Just a ride, and then another one. It's quite phasey, and then we're also panning it left and right for stereo interest. And then we've also got this one. So these loops really fill out the high frequencies. And then a few additional tracks on top. We've got a crash, then also a rim in the second repeat. So if you play that with the kick and clap, this is just adding a lot more groove to the track. Also towards the end, a tom. Let's take a look at the bass now. We've got two layers, and let's play both together. We've got this sub-layer, and then we've got another layer with reverb a bit higher. This one is just a saw wave with low pass filter and a bit of release, so that the notes extend even after they stop playing. We don't have any envelopes or LFOs applied, and there's actually no EQing on top even. Then we have a bass plug as well. This one is 2 octaves higher. We've got reverb on top, and we're just cutting the sub frequencies here. On top we've got sidechain, of course, and some saturation for cohesion. Now let's take a look at the instruments. First of all, maybe let's move on to the piano. This is the most important track here. We've just got the grand piano from Ableton, so nothing fancy going on. It's perfectly enough for piano house tracks. It's a nice groovy MIDI pattern. We are just doing some EQing on top. So this EQing just changes the timbre of this grand piano. Of course, we're doing some ducking for some pumping on top. Then there's this piano, which is sampled. It's just a layer for sound design. It could work alone with this grand piano. It's just adding some different frequencies. It's a very simple layering technique here. So on top we've got an auto filter as well. So we're cutting the lows here, and of course sidechaining as well. Some crazy mid-side EQing on top, which is really making the highs more pronounced and reducing the mids as well. So yeah, that would be the grand piano. Now we've got a plug, which is also made of a saw wave. The LFO applied to the pitch, which is doing this pitch fluctuation, and then just reverb and EQing on top. And this is just a rhythmic sound. But it works quite well. Now we've got a plug. It's very subtle, but it plays underneath the piano chords. It's got 18 milliseconds of attack, so it's quite subtle. And we're also not opening it up, reducing the frequencies and adding reverb also. And then also another track, we've got some leads. So just fairly basic saw wave here. And then another one. It's just very in the background, but just adding a different flavor in the second repeat of the drop. It's a very common technique in house, just adding a static strings sound or just a static note. So we're just stacking these 3 layers here. That would be all of the tracks. Alright, so let's play track number 3 for today. Okay, this one is a bit tech house influenced. We've got very stuttery and snappy drums, then also a very minimal bass line with some upper harmonics and just 3 tracks on top, some plugs, and that is it. Okay, so let's get started. We've got some vocal tracks here, just some effects, and then also this. So just playing in the key of the track, just a vocal effects line. Let's take a look at the kick. Just EQing on top pretty much, reducing the frequencies around 400 Hz. We've got a clap as well, no processing on, cymbals group. Just a very simple closed hi-hat. Another one just layered for groove. A tambourine sample. And we are skipping some of the notes, so it's more unexpected sounding. And then we've also got this really nice hi-hat. So it's a bit lower, and it's adding also a lot of groove. And we've also got this perk loop. Let's listen to the cymbals with the perk. These tracks, this is what makes the groove of this track. And then we've got a bass line, which is the main focus here, I think. So let's solo the bass line. We've got a sub. And then we've got some harmonics on this bass mid track. We are using a simple saw wave and just using sync in the classic mode to just add some more harmonics. So, sounds like this without it. But much fuller once we add the sync. Very simple here, just a filter on the frequency knob, EQing, drum bass for some saturation, and then just ducking. But the more interesting track is this bass mid track, which is also doing the same trick with the sync, just a bit more of it. But we also have this sine wave, which we have 1 octave and a 5th above, so 19 semitones. We are also boosting this frequency here in the EQ. And this just gives us this nice 5th frequency above our bass. It adds a bit of a hidden melody line here as well. And just ducking on top. And we're making it wider with utility. On top we've just got multi-band dynamics for compression and saturation. And as for the instruments here on this track, we've got plugs. So a fairly basic square wave with also using sync would sound like this without it. Just adding more harmonics and then on top just EQing, and then also we've got this LFO here applied to the pitch, gliding in and out of tune. And then we've also got some percussion, which is pretty loud actually. So it plays well with the bass line. So it's got redux on top especially. It's a fairly basic muffled sound. The redux is just adding this bitrate reduction, which just adds these digital sounding noisy overtones. So these would be all of the tracks from the last track for today. Alright, I hope you'll find this video useful. Make sure to check out our Music Production Academy with lots of start to finish courses on making tracks in various genres. And if you'd like to learn Live 12 with all the foundations of music production, check out the Beginner to Advanced Live 12 Start to Finish course. The full project files with today's tracks are part of the brand new house pack called Fun Times, which is available in the description. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like, write a comment, and I will see you in the next ones.